Everybody, Rule the Lines UK, Matt and Ash just getting set up here. We're going to be joined by TJ Jones from State of the Saints podcast from Gumbo Pot Sports. He was with us for the draft. He's going to be a really good guest. He'll be with us, I think, at about 4 p.m. Eastern or maybe 4:30 p.m. Eastern. So might have to hang on a little bit to wait for TJ. But if you've got any questions for him, then would love you to come and say hello and at the channel so that we can get in a question for him later. That would be great. Ash, how you doing, mate?
I'm all right. But it's obviously a bit colder over here these days now. So getting through it. I wish I had a nice, long, warm, lovely beanie like you do. Buy from ROTL UK store.
That's shameless.
Yeah.
Absolutely shameless.
I mean, I can't talk about being shameless. Like, I did roast myself yesterday in the YouTube shorts by calling myself the dumbass of the week. So
yeah, but then you also put you sad sweet little boy or something as well.
Today,
so.
Yeah, because it was the oh yeah, I'm sure that Goff's got out of his slump from the Bears game. He won't turn the ball over, and yeah, just that because it's obviously fucking 3 fumbles.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm trying. Hopefully, you guys are liking the sort of more memey ones I've done this week. It's just because I had a lot of spare time on Saturday, so I just sat there and edited the preview, live reaction, and reaction shows. So I've got 15, 20 more clips to come in the next couple of days.
Mad. Lions Broncos flex to Saturday.
What?
That's what Ryan Farden's just said.
Yeah, it's just happened, yeah.
What the hell?
It's a late one. I might be able to do it still. I was worried it was going to be like the early kickoff because I've got my family coming over for my birthday.
So is that the week? Is that the week before Christmas?
Yes.
Yeah, because we're already playing on Saturday on Christmas week, aren't we?
Yeah, with Dallas against the Cowboys.
Week 15, Saturday, 8:15 kickoff, 1:15 in the morning. Oh, buddy.
Right. Time to pump the energy drinks for that one.
Yeah. Oh, that's going to be sick. I love the late night games as long as I don't have to work the next day. Get in.
Oh, yes, exactly. Yeah, same. Oh, that's going to be fun. Oh, yes, because that's the week I was saying a minute ago about we've had our first ever Monday night football flex.
Yeah.
With the Chiefs Patriots. So it makes sense. It's been announced now.
Just want to give a shout out to everyone in the chat, especially to Big Aries 70 for subscribing at Tier 1 for his 23rd month, and Lost Oceans as well for his 8th month. Thank you guys as well in the chat too, in Twitch. Dan McGuinness, Dan Pass, Adol Still. How you doing, boys? And we've got in the YouTube chat too, we've got quite a few people waiting for TJ Jones. Jerry G's in the chat, Snakebite as well, Grandizer, who's here, there, and everywhere. Ken Stowder's here too, Mark Marker, Brent DeWitt, Joseph Austin, and I think that does it for us. If you are in the chat, you want to shout out before we start and kind of come and say hello. I don't think Ash has anything else in the doc that we need to update for. I hate the name, really? But I didn't know what else to put.
Yeah, it's like you can't really go for like Tracy Chapman either because car's not necessarily that speedy, so we can't go for fast car either.
Yeah.
But it works because I came in, because you probably saw, I went into it early. I was like, let's have a look and see if we've got a fun Tyson. So you got getaway cars. Like, you know what? That works. I can.
I'm sorry, I just stopped.
Exactly. And Villa already 1-0 up.
Hey! And hello as well to Lisa De Lorenzo as well. We got a question which I think we can maybe address at the top before we've even started, which I know what side of the fence I'm on with this. Joshua Mercer in the Twitch chat highlighting the message saying, is there any chance Marcus Peters is on the radar for the Lions? He should be, right? At the very least, we need depth in the cornerback room. Ash?
No. As much as he can force turnovers, as we all saw against us, he is very lazy on his other 95% of his snaps. He just he gambles a lot as well. So you imagine how Amani Oruwariye, he's got that more. Butchering what exactly? I know I can't pronounce English. I had this earlier at work. I had it where I had to call someone for work, and their name was like that, and I literally butchered it. And I was like, "I'm so sorry. It's 9:30 in the morning. I haven't got my caffeine down. I can't butcher it." But
Yeah.
imagine that where you have the sort of high of his year where he led the league in interceptions, but you also have the potential for him to be how Marnie was last year, where it's just completely wrong. He's a veteran as well. He's probably because of his name, he's going to command a decent sized contract when you sign him off free agency. So it's a no for me, unfortunately. I'm looking elsewhere. I do agree we need reinforcements in the secondary. And I've been saying as much since the offseason was like, this is why I don't want to trade Jeff, because I want to have three corners I can sort of trust as starters. Fortunately, obviously, we traded him away. We've got Manuel Mosley in, and he got hurt. I agree we need stuff in the secondary. I just don't know if Peters is the right player, unfortunately.
I don't think there's anyone better in free agency available, really.
Sure,
And I
yeah.
also think that actually quite a lot of the problems are schematic rather than player-based anyway. So,
Yeah.
Is a person going to come in and execute the scheme better? And I just kind of think, no, not really.
The only person who can technically come in and execute the scheme better is a certain safety who posted today on his Instagram story to watch out on December the 20th, I believe.
Is it that his window's going to be open then? Is that when he's going to be back at practice? Is that when he's going to be back at a game? Do the doctors agree? Is it just him being him?
Exactly.
I think he's speaking it into existence.
Yeah. Though, because it felt like he was doing press-ups with the team before the game on Thursday. When he tore his pec, that's a very good sign because that's what you're using. But yeah, and we've seen it before with TJ Watt, not last season, the season before, he tore his pec like week 4 and he was back for like before the end of the season. So there's precedent there. But yeah, I can see it speaking into existence, giving us a bit of hope. Like if he does come back, then that'd be a massive shot for that secondary because...
Yeah, it would be huge. Well, the safeties have been struggling, and Pride of Detroit put that very well on their mailbag show in midweek, talking about how both Kirby and Tracy have been struggling, and so what can you do about that?
Exactly.
And I mean, I would say that if Artie Melifonwu has played really well in limited snaps, and then suddenly he's completely disappeared, why is he gone from the lineup when the safeties are struggling? Did he have an injury?
He's carrying an injury. I think when you watch him, he's playing with like a sort of club on his hand. I think he hurt his wrist. God, Pro Football Focus, Pro Football Net reference will probably have on the injury report thing. I think it was around week 5 he picked it up. Give me a sec. Injury reports.
I can't believe it's the 30th of December, by the way. Like,
I know.
You guys, it's 3 working weeks and a day until Christmas, and I'll be off for 11 days. It's going to be fucking sick. Can't wait. So excited just to have some time off.
Shut up on there. I swear, yeah, he's got a wrist injury. Just can't find when he got it. I think it was around week 4 or 5.
We haven't had the practice report out yet, which is really annoying.
No. I'll keep
Actually, I just need to double check whether the betting has moved. The over-under's gone up by a point.
Ooh.
And otherwise the underlying betting is... Lisa said, does anyone know what happened to Alex Anzalone? I didn't
He
see
supposedly hurt his hand late. Again, it's another hand injury, I'm saying. Hurt his hand late against the Packers, and you could see him getting it wrapped on the sideline. But I think it's a combination of that, and also obviously his wife giving birth sometime soon. It's just a combination of those factors that are ruling him out.
Yeah,
for all intents and purposes, which is bad because obviously he's our best coverage line, but he's the best. Well, I haven't checked for updating for last week, but before Thanksgiving, Anzalone was the best coverage linebacker in the league per PFF. He's still probably by a damn margin our best one.
Yeah.
He's our best blitzing linebacker right now. So that's 2 of the 3 jobs we need linebackers for just weakened. Ain't good.
Not ideal. Yeah. Hey. Right, shall we crack on?
Yep.
Oh, we can drag this out a little bit because we've got TJ coming either in 50 minutes or in an hour and 20, and I don't know exactly when. So
Yeah.
we will just
That'll
have
be
to
fun.
see when he arrives. 4 p.m. Eastern, he's just said on his channel 2 minutes ago. So he'll be here in 50, which is probably a really good timing, I think.
Yes.
Okay, right, here we go then.
Recording in progress.
Welcome to another edition of the Royal Alliance UK podcast, episode 236, Getaway Car. My name's Matthew Turner, alongside Ashley Soden. How you doing, man?
I'm doing all right. It's a bit cold over here in the UK now. Got bundled up warm, but hopefully this game, there's some optimism that can put some warmth into me after the cold despair of the past 2 weeks or so.
Feels like a long time since Lions Packers already. So
True, yeah.
we need to get right. Fingers crossed that we do. Oh, thank you for changing the name of that because I completely missed that. Yes, November 30th today, and we're going to be joined in about 45 minutes' time by our friend TJ Jones from State of the Saints podcast from Gumbo Pot Sports. He joined us for the draft. If you didn't catch it, he was a fantastic guest, very knowledgeable, very passionate. Can't wait to have him back on, so looking forward to that later on in the show. Of course, we are previewing the Saints game. We're going to go through some news. We're going to talk about the Saints ourselves, and then TJ is going to come in and give us the expert analysis right at the end of the show before we answer, as we always do, some of your questions off the air after the audio pod is finished. And if you want some extra time with us, you have to go on to our YouTube and Twitch channels for that, or you can watch them on replay too, of course. But first, some preamble. Don't forget to join our Discord channel. It's a fantastic place to be. It's really become a great community of people that I'm happy to be a part of. We are very active in it, and if you want to come and chat with us, the links are in the YouTube and Twitch chats right now. College Football Podcast will be coming up, I hope, soon, but I know that Anna's been really struggling because he works as in the restaurant and bar industry, and it's coming up to Christmas, that it's super busy right now for him, so stay tuned for that. Obviously, Championship weekend is coming up this weekend, so the preview for that will be here shortly. Please don't forget to like the show, sub to the podcast, all of that stuff. We're now up to 1,400 subscribers on YouTube, which is such a big milestone for us, and thank you everyone who does just click the button for that, even if you don't watch us on YouTube or whatever it is. The figures do make a difference. They do put us in front of more people, and it is just a nice little boost for us as well, personally. Lions Nation Unite, please don't forget to add them on their Facebook group. It's Herman Moore's project to bring the best in Lions content creators together. You can find them on their page at facebook.com/Lions Nation Unite or facebook.com/groups/Lions Nation Unite if you want to be a fan of the page or be a part of the group itself. As mentioned, YouTube and Twitch, monetized on both. Also got a tip jar in the YouTube description, so if you're enjoying what you're listening to, you want to show some love in that way, we massively appreciate that, but listening is more than good enough for us. And there's a feedback form down in the YouTube description as well. So if you want any way to get in contact with us, to improve the show, suggest content, all that stuff, that's down there. And finally, our merch store is open, as you can see. Ash demoing the cap, myself with the beanie, which is actually affecting my sound. So I might take this off in a minute, but there we go. You can find that all on the store. Link is in the chat for that too. If you want to buy a loved one something for Christmas, you know where to go. Right, news. And Ash, our first bit of news feels like deja vu. Wide receiver Tom Kennedy is back. He's over his injury. He, of course, was in camp, got injured, went on injured reserve, was eventually waived with the injury designation and got himself an injury settlement. Didn't get re-signed anywhere else, waited his time, waited another 3 weeks, and he's back. And Dylan Drummond has been released to make way for him on the practice squad. Drummond, we were really high on during the preseason. It seems like nothing's really come of it. I think from memory he was elevated once, but didn't really do anything in that time. And now Kennedy's back, and I know that you had a really good comment on Discord about him and the reasons why they might want to be doing this.
Yeah, so firstly, Dylan Drummond, I hope he can come back next off-season, because if people forget, he was supposedly like our second best receiver in preseason behind Amon-Ra. Like, he had a real connection with the QBs. He was getting open consistently with that route running. So for someone who wasn't even a UDFA, he was like brought in for sort of like the rookie camp as a local tryout, managed to impress his way into being to camp and sticking around on our practice squad for this long. Fair play to him, and hopefully he can come back next offseason, as I say, and maybe stake his claim again. But with Kennedy, it comes down to consistency and reliability. Like, that's what Tom Kennedy is for us. He's the kind of guy that you can stick out there. He will never probably do anything spectacular other than throw absolute bombs to Khalif Raymond's on flea flickers, as we all know. Hopefully we can pull that play back out the playbook after we tried to run it with Amon Ra earlier this show and it went completely tits up. But Kennedy, he's the guy that if you need to throw like a 10-yard hitch, he can catch it. And that's what we need at this time of year now, where we just need that sort of, we know what we're getting from the players. It's what we saw a few weeks ago with a couple of the practice squad moves, bringing in Michael Schofield in the corner, Kindle Vildor. Because they've been there, done that, the team know what they're going to get out of them as we push towards trying to win the division, lock up a really good seed in the playoffs, and then go into the playoffs and hopefully win some games. The team needs that sort of consistency rather than the variable of outcomes that Dylan Drummond can get. So obviously, Tom Kennedy is now the third thing that's there, along with death taxes, and it's Tom Kennedy being on our team, it seems. A couple of years ago, it was Don Muleback, who obviously is now the special team, like something to do with special teams on the team. He's sticking around. Now that's Tom Kennedy, and he'll probably be here until his legs fall off, basically.
Yeah, the thing about Tom Kennedy is he's always unremarkable, but he always kind of performs when he's out there as well. And I mean, I remember him being on the main roster. It was at the beginning of last season. It was the beginning of. Oh, it might be in the beginning of last season, actually. Let's see. So last year, he had 8 catches for 141 yards. And I think most of them came in one game, if I remember rightly. I need to bring up... I should really have tried to bring this up before I started talking about him, but, that's never been my strong point. So he went 3 of 5 for 54 against Seattle in that 48-45 loss in week 4. Yeah. He had 1 catch on 2 targets for 44 yards against Chicago in the 31-30 win. Like, they're not massive plays, but in the context of not having anyone else to take those reps, he can be that sort of reliable blanket. And I mean, 44 yards of catch, only 1 catch, 44 yards. I remember that big play. It was huge in the context of the game. I think it might have given us the game, in fact. I think it might have solidified the whole thing right at the end. So, you know what you're getting with him, and it's someone who's going to run the right routes. And actually, he's a preseason warrior for a reason, because he's better than a replacement level player. But he is a replacement level player himself, if you know what I mean. He's a replacement level wide receiver who is much better than replacement level DBs. That's how I want to put it.
Yes. That makes sense. And obviously, he is athletic. Like, we're talking about a former lacrosse star here who just conferred. Like, if he, and I hate putting it out there, if he was on like the Patriots, when the Patriots had a functional offense, precursor, but he's the kind of sort of like Danny Amendola, Julian Edelman of the world, where if he's in that system, everyone will know about him because they just seem to work well in that system. But because he's with us, and until roughly this year, we weren't really getting many eyes on us. We can, he's just kind of gone under the radar. Like, he sniffs of someone, like, he sticks around the practice, if we elevate him a couple of times, I hate to say it, the Chiefs might come sniffing. Like, we've seen it today. They've signed one of the Cardinals running backs off their practice squad, kind of like how they last year they signed, God, I should remember this, the veteran Melvin Gordon. It might be a kind of, he might turn into like this year's Melvin Gordon for the Chiefs, where he comes in, he might be a bit better than some of the receivers they're chucking out there right now. So hopefully we can get him to stick around at least first so he can help us in the playoff push rather than giving Patrick Mahomes a reliable person to throw to who's not called Travis Kelce.
Yeah, he'd instantly be one of their best wide receivers. And I think it's just because he's an unfancied name that no one really knows, and he's been on our practice squad forever and hasn't played that much, that, why would anyone notice him? But hopefully he does well enough. And actually, I hope he does garner some attention because it means he's done something for us. Anyway, Next bit up is the quarterback. Hendon Hooker's 21-day clock was activated and he practiced for the first time on Wednesday. This means that if he is not signed to the active roster 3 weeks from yesterday, he will be shut down on IR for the rest of the season. Now, Ash, for me, I don't necessarily think he will be activated. I think this is them saying we've seen him not with the team enough, doing the sort of physical stuff without actually working out, that we believe that there's no limitations now, so we need to see him with the group. And because they've got the insurance of having a QB2 already, if he doesn't get activated, it's no different from what they've had the last 12 weeks. But what they're doing is they're saying, okay, but if this works and we've got a little wrinkle of something to bring to the playoffs, a properly mobile quarterback who can perhaps show something that no other team has seen from us yet this season, and that's going to be interesting. And also, they just want to see him. But there's a lot of fans out there who think that this could be, it's coincided very well with Goff not having a great run. There's lots of calls for, maybe this is the start of the transition. And I mean, at 8-3, I don't buy it. How far are you into sort of buying into this?
I'm halfway there, kind of. So I know I said on Discord when it was announced yesterday that was like, I can see him being activated and then us using the third QB rule to sort of have him there, where, okay, we won't have to have him active on game day, but at least he's getting experience because, I think he was saying to Colton Pouncey yesterday when he was interviewed in the locker room afterwards, he has done pretty much everything except for throw the ball with pads on and that, because you're not allowed to do that when you're at NFI. See, I agree this is 100% the team seeing what we've actually got him now. Now he's fully healthy. He can do the stuff. Let's get him actual proper functional practice snaps, see what we got. And yeah, if he shows enough, we can add him to the roster, probably kick, I don't know, Trevor Noweske off the 53, and then just use the third QB rule and have him there. And yeah, we could have some packages like a certain player we're going to come on to in a bit when discussing a certain team's offense. We can start running some of those packages because where does our head coach come from? And who does Ben Johnson look up to? And he said in an interview, I think it was last year with Justin Rogers, Sean Payton, Ben Johnson looks up to Sean Payton a bit. And Dan comes from New Orleans as the tight ends coach, where he had a certain guy called Taysom Hill under his wing for a couple of years. If we start running some of those packages, like imagine like a two quarterback set where you have like Goff and Hooker, like it will be fancy. It might not work. It might have like a 50% success rate where either you get a big play from it or it goes horrifically wrong. But it's just that little extra layer of spice that we need coming into the playoffs, that little bit of uncertainty, because I know it's probably it's just looking at its past 2 weeks and maybe drawing a bit too much from it, but the offense isn't firing on all cylinders right now. It might have been found out a tiny bit, and we just need to find that new avenue just to put that spark of life back into the engine that is the offense.
Yeah, I buy that 100%. The idea of just us running quarterback sweep is just super exciting to me. And like, Hooker is a legit deep arm threat. And, coming into the playoffs, if we get super behind and we need to throw some deep bombs and we want to make the most of JMO, then him being in there, Khalif and JMO on the outside, like that is a weapon. And, I am not against Goff whatsoever. I am still all aboard the train for extend him because I think he's shown enough, and 2 games in the last 2 years is not enough to dissuade me that he isn't our guy. But Hendon just provides something that Goff doesn't, and that's exciting too, and they can both coexist. So anyway, let's see what happens with that. And the last bit of news that we have, super exciting for the Lions fans. Maybe not if you were planning to travel to the game in 3 weeks' time. 2 weeks' time? 2 weeks' time. But the Lions game against the Broncos has been flexed. It was going to be, I think, Sunday, 1 p.m. Eastern, and it has been flexed. It's now on Saturday, December 16th, and it is an 8:15 p.m. kickoff. Saturday night football. Cannot wait for it. Ash, we both had our hearts sank a little bit because of like how it might screw up our day, and suddenly it might actually be perfect. And it's going to be so loud.
Well, hopefully not too loud from your end. I don't want to get you in trouble again. But yeah, it works out quite well for me. Like I was scared when I saw it. It's like, oh God, if this is the early kickoff because it's the day after my birthday, my family supposedly coming up. So I was like, oh no, if I have to kick my family out so I can stream, they're not going to be too happy. But yeah, since it's the late kickoff, I can sort of relax a bit. Obviously, see my family, get a couple of the bevs in, put myself full of energy drinks, and then hopefully rock out to what might be looking it forward from a couple of weeks. Might be an explosive offensive battle, which who would have thought that coming into this season? We all thought the Broncos aren't going to be good on offense. Sean Payton might not work out on this defense. Those first couple of weeks, we were like, so this actually, it might be a better game than we thought going into the year, which is probably why it's got flex. Like, it's going to be a really good game.
Yeah, I can't wait. And I mean, the Broncos have got a tough matchup to get through this week first, and then, they've got the run the gauntlet, but they've done it so far, so you can't bet against them. It's going to be a fight of two heavyweights this year, which is just nuts to say, especially considering the Denver-Miami game. Like, going back to that and thinking the Denver could get in the playoffs is just ridiculous, but there we go. Right. Let's kick off this Saints preview. We've got about 35 minutes to go until TJ is going to be on the show. So plenty of time to go through the stats, talk a little bit about the team, and then we're going to bring him on to talk about the team in depth. So the Saints are 5-6. According to Pro Football Reference, they are 5.7 expected wins, 5.3 expected losses. So they are about 0.7 of a win underneath expectation, which I think people might be surprised about because of how anemic some of that offense has been recently. Their games so far this season, they started out 2-0 with wins against the Titans and at the Panthers, but then lost 2 in a row at the Packers and then versus Tampa Bay. So 4 teams out the gate who maybe have not had the best seasons overall and go 2-2 in that stretch. They then wiped out the Patriots 34-0. I know that our friend Harley Quinn in the chat at the moment was at that game. I think it might be your birthday as well. So sorry, Natasha, to remind you of that one. Then fall back to 500 again with a loss at the Texans. And then a loss to Jacksonville put them under 500, but then wins at the Colts and versus the Chicago Bears, and then losses at the Vikings and at the Falcons put them at 5-6. Looking at this game in the betting, Lions are 2-1 on favourites. Saints are 17-10. So in American terms, that would be about -150 for the Lions and about +170 for the Saints. Lions, that translates to 4-point favourites on the spread. The over-under is 47. Injury report for Wednesday, not out yet for Thursday, but Anzalone did not practice. He is not expected to play, unfortunately. Hooker, Jonah Jackson, David Montgomery, Tracy Walker, all limited with various injuries. A knee for Hendon, obviously. Ankle and wrist for Jonah, we know about. Montgomery with a foot is interesting, and Tracy Walker with a shoulder. And then Ifeatu Melifonwu and Frank Ragnow, full practice, but with hand and back toe injuries, respectively. For the Saints, however, the injury report is very interesting. No practices from Cam Jordan, defensive end, Marcus May, safety, Kendre Miller, running back, Raheed Shaheed, wide receiver, and Pete Werner, linebacker. Limited in practice for Jimmy Graham, the tight end, Blake Grupe, the kicker. They have been trying out kickers this week, just in case. Eric McCoy, center. Chris Olave, wide receiver in concussion protocol, but limited in practice, so he is on his way to passing the protocol. Let's see what happens there. And Ryan Ramczyk, he was on a rest day, but he is carrying a knee issue as well. What else do we have here? On injured reserve as well, the Saints are just absolutely decimated with a few big names out there. Wide receiver Michael Thomas, I know that he's been an injury concern basically the last 3 years of his career, but he had started to do things once again. It's a shame that he's on the sidelines for them. Cornerback Marshawn Lattimore is on IR, so is the defensive end Peyton Turner. Running back, Benjamin, and guard Trey Turner. I'll come on to their starters in just a minute. But Ash, they are absolutely decimated by an injury. And if I have a look at who they've played so far this season, I think the best team they might have faced are the Texans. And I'm not sure you would have thought that coming in, but in fact, the rest of the way, they're playing Lions, Panthers, Giants, Rams, Bucks, Falcons. As a virtue of being in the NFC South, they haven't they haven't played a quality the Jags and the Texans, but they've not really played. They haven't played a Philly. They haven't played a Chiefs, Baltimore. They haven't been tested yet.
Yep, and it's just a look of the draw, I guess. Obviously, we hopefully might get one of those years where we don't have to face anyone hard, but considering where we want to be going with our team, that's obviously unlikely. We're going to be drawing the first seeds in quite a lot of divisions, hopefully going forward. So, but yeah, they haven't really faced anyone. And as you said, their offense has been anemic at best, despite Mickey Loomis, their general manager, I believe, saying, oh yeah, we're in top 10 for getting to the red zone. When you're not scoring in the red zone, that does not mean squat. I mean, I said it on the pre-show, and I know it's a stat that they've said on the part of the Detroit preview with the Saints reporter, and it's also divisional games. In their 3 divisional games so far, they've scored 2 touchdowns. Both of those were against the Panthers, and both of those were scored by a player who's no longer on the team in Tony Jones. They are absolutely dire in the red zone. Like, horrific. We'll come on to it later, especially since the main proponent of that is their quarterback. So we'll probably answer that in a bit, but they're just, they're slowly but surely biting the bullet for all the cap stuff that's happened. They're slowly hemorrhaging talent, and yet they still believe they're 1-2 pieces away. So they're trying to draw out that window that's been closed. They're basically like a bee that's been trapped in their house. They're trying to get through the window, and it's just closed. They can't get through. And until they wake up and smell the coffee and get someone to open that window for them by getting rid of all these big, expensive veterans and just committing to a rebuild, this is all they're going to be. They're going to be perpetually 6-10, 7-10. I mean, 7-10, 8-9. Where okay, yeah, they can win a few games against their own division, be scrappy that way, but they're never going to compete with the likes of like San Francisco, Seattle, Philadelphia, Dallas, us. They're going to be in that sort of, they're going to be kind of how we were for a bit, where we could be scrappy, we can win a few games, but we were never going to do anything serious until we commit to that rebuild. That's what they need to do.
Yeah, I'm in complete agreement. And as we go through this team, there'll be some glaring examples of where there's just wastage, and I don't really get what they're trying to do. Let's bring up their starters now, and on offense, I say starters. I just go through the depth chart, so I don't know why I say starters every time. Quarterback, Derek Carr is the starter, backed up by Jameis Winston. You've also got Taysom Hill, who takes, obviously, he has a couple of throws every game, but not very many. And Jake Hayner back there as well as QB4. Running backs, Alvin Kamara, Jamal Williams, we know him well, and Kendre Miller. Wide receivers, Chris Olave, Rashid Shaheed, A.T. Perry, Lynn Bowden, Keith Kirkwood, and Michael Thomas obviously on IR. Rashid Shaheed not expected to go, I don't think, this week. And Olave is a 50-50 call at this point with trying to pass the protocol, although it looks like he's on the way. Tight ends, Juwan Johnson, Taysom Hill obviously mentioned already, Foster Moreau, and Jimmy Graham. And then the starting 5 up front, Andres Pete at left tackle, James Hurst left guard, Eric McCoy centre questionable, Cesar Ruiz right guard, and right tackle Ryan Ramczyk. You've also got Trevor Penning down there, who's listed as LT3 because James Hurst apparently is LT2, even though he's LG1 as well. You've got Nick Saldivieri in there too. Otherwise, there's not a huge amount of depth. On defense, player base 4-3. Defensive ends, Cam Jordan and Carl Granderson, backed up by Isaiah Foskey and Tano Passingen, I'll say, as well as Carl Phillips. And then the DTs, Nathan Shepard, Colleen Saunders, Brian Brzee, and Malcolm Roach. The outside linebackers are Pete Werner, Zach Bourne, Nefi Sewell, and Ty Summers. Inside linebacker, Demario Davis and DeMarco Jackson. And then the back 4, Paulson Adebo, Alontae Taylor, Isaac Yiadom, and Cam Dantzler are the cornerbacks. The safeties, Marcus May, Tyron Matthew, Jordan Howden, Lonnie Johnson, JT Gray, Ugo Amadi, and newly signed Jonathan Abram. The kicker, as we've mentioned, is Blake Groupie. He is questionable for this one. The punter's Lou Headley, who is also the holder. The returner is Rashid Shaheed, so that's a worry as well. Long snacker. snapper. I'm struggling here.
You're hungry, boy.
I am. Is Zach Wood. When looking at that team, Ash, there's a shocking amount of depth in some places, and then a weird wealth of depth in others, no more so than at cornerback. Why do you have supposedly 4 viable guys?
Yeah, exactly. It's a bit weird. So yeah, look at the cornerbacks first, because that's also another connection we have with this team with Mr. Glenn. I know obviously Lattimore's on IR, but yeah, they have some really good guys. Like Paul Debo had a down year last year, but he's been a damn good corner this year. Alontae Taylor's been pretty damn good in the slots. Isaac Yiadom, I know the guy that Pride Detroit had on TSA said not many people will know him. He's been pretty good. I remember him on the Broncos. Like he was always kind of in that sort of Jerry sort of zone where, okay, yeah, he's never going to be a cornerback 1, which is why they got Pat Surtain. But he's pretty damn good when you put him in the right positions to play. Cam Dantzler, talented, but just got wasted by Minnesota. Who's surprised it's Minnesota? They either work out really well with corners like Xavier Rhodes, or they just completely ruin them. And yeah, then at safety as well, like Tyrann Matthews, Honey Badger still pretty damn good. Got a couple of turnovers last week. Marcus May, okay, yeah, has some off-field stuff, but he was also always a sort of decent starter, even when he was back in the New York. I remember like he got tagged one year because he was that good the year before, and they didn't want to lose him. Fortunately, they did. Lonnie Johnson, former converted corner from Richie from Houston. I think he was drafted by the Texans. Obviously, he went to the Titans. Then now he's in New Orleans. Jonathan Abram, as a 5th safety, is a guy who you put in the box and just run defend. He's good. If you wanted him to do any coverage, he's not going to do anything for you. They've got an embarrassment of riches back there at the secondary. And then even at linebacker, like Zach Bourne, that's a guy I remember when in that draft cycle we were looking at as the for the Lions, because obviously he's that sort of, he would be perfect for this Sam problem that we're having right now, because he used to pass rush in college, but he can cover and he can run defend. Love him to be on this team. Demario Davis is, while he's getting on a bit, he's an absolute beast at middle linebacker. Like he's someone I'm very scared of for this week, but we should overcome it. Pete Werner, former Buckeye, can do things. Nephi Saul, well, we've got the inside track with him because obviously we've got his brother on our team. We've got the best Saul in the business. And then even up front, like Brian Breezy is your sort of 3rd DT. This is a guy we would potentially consider him at 18. Like he has a lot of wood talent in the world. Unfortunately, things didn't go his way. Clemson, obviously, his sister dying and the injury, the ACL and that. But when he's on, he can be absolutely good. I know that more than most as an FSU fan. I've seen him tear our centers apart a few times. But even then, like Malcolm Roach is good. Isaiah Foskey is your sort of 3rd, 4th pass rusher. Again, someone we're considering at maybe 18 at one point in the draft cycle last year. Like this defense is loaded, and they've got a defensive head coach with Allen, but it started off well, kind of falling down the past couple of weeks. They start to play slightly harder teams. Like I know Jeremy Reisman tweeted like the first 4 weeks they were up there with us in terms of DVOA and defense. I think we were 4th, they were 5th. Since then, they've been like 29th. They have not been good. It hasn't been coming together, and it's because they've kind of fallen for the same trap we are, where they're committing a bit too much to run defense in some parts and not putting their players in the best position because they don't know what they think they know what their identity is, but their identity was what they were 4 or 5 years ago when they had Aaron Glenn as the secondary coach, and they had a few more players that they've now had to lose, like CJ Gardner-Johnson, for example, man in that nickel zone. They've got talent there, and if it all comes together, it can be a really damn good defense and a decent offense. But offense isn't really firing because, sort of, as we'll come on to probably in a minute with Derek Carr, him and the offensive coordinator just haven't gelled together. Their wide receiver room is decimated. Like I know we're saying Olave could be 50-50. I'm actually siding in him not playing because you really don't want to mess with concussions. This is like his 3rd concussion since he came into the league last year. That's verging on dangerous territory if you start trying to make him play just because you need a wide receiver. And yeah, the offensive line, that used to be a stalwart of this team. And now it's kind of got weaker. Like Ramchek's still a damn good right tackle. Ruiz I remember him coming out. He could, if McCoy doesn't go, he could slide in at centre. He's done it before. That's what he got drafted for. But it's slowly weakening. It's this again where they've kept the veterans around because they think their window's still there, but it's just really not. And they just need to let go. Like, it's, I don't know, like, we'll probably come into it in a bit, as I say, with like Carr and that. And then just for the special teams, like, if Groupie can't go as a UDFA kicker, they signed Austin Seibert to the practice squad. So it's another reunion with yet another kicker of ours. So that's going to be fun to watch.
Yeah, right. Let's move on and talk about their overall team and then the offense. So they are, per PFF, the 13th overall team with a PFF grade of 79.7. They're 21st on offense and 8th on defense. I mean, that's backed up very much as well by their points allowed per game, which is 9th with 20.2. So if you're expecting a high-scoring game, maybe readjust your evaluation. DVOA, they have an 18th overall, so a little bit lower. Similarly on offense at 20th, but DVOA for defense is a lot lower on 13th overall. Offensively, led by Derek Carr, 244 completions on 372 attempts, 65.6%, 2,535 yards. That is 10 touchdowns, 5 interceptions, a passer rating of 88.5, quarterback rating 47.4, and a PFF grade of 67.6. Alvin Kamara lead back, 119 carries for 457 yards. That's 3.8 yards per carry and 2 touchdowns. Also at the backfield, catching it 54 times on 61 targets for 355 yards, 6.6 yards a catch and 1 touchdown. He has a PFF grade of 73.5. Leading wide receiver is Chris Olave, of course it is. 63 catches on 103 targets, 771 yards, 12.2 yards per catch, and 3 touchdowns. He has a PFF grade of 80.7. And Taysom Hill, how can you not mention him? He's only thrown the ball 6 times, but he's got 5 completions for 72 yards and a touchdown. He's also run the ball 57 times for 287 yards, which is 5 yards a carry and 3 touchdowns. And he's caught the ball 24 times on 31 targets, 214 yards. That's 8.9 yards per catch and a touchdown. How do you even put that into words? And the PFF grade of 73.3. Other good grades, McCoy, the center, 79.7, and Ramczyk, the tackle, 76.8. Worst grades in there, maybe this is why Penning is a backup at this point, 53.5. Cesar Ruiz, the starting right guard right now, might slide over to center, as he said, 52.4. And the backup tackle, Pete, 51.5. Efficiency ratings on third down, they're 21st, completing 37% of the time. On fourth down, they are 9th, converting 57% of the time, but that's only on 14 attempts. And in the red zone, you mentioned this, Ash, they only get touchdowns 42.5% of the time. That is 29th in the NFL, 17 touchdowns on 40 red zone trips. And they do line up primarily in 11 personnel, that's 43% of the time, but they also go 1 personnel, 1 running back, no tight ends. That's, I can't even read, 18% of the time. They go 12 personnel, 14% of the time, and then 11 with the 6 offensive linemen, 12% of the time. So they are one of the more varied teams in the NFL in terms of how they come out on offense. And actually, you've got to think that is mainly because of how much they use Taysom Hill wherever they use him. You don't really know where he's going to line up.
Yeah, exactly. Like, he can line up a tight end, running back, a quarterback in the like wildcat. He can line up everyone. It is a very varied offense. But at the same time, as we said, it hasn't really been functioning that well. Like, at least in the 20s. From their own 20 to the opposition's 20, they're perfectly functioning offense. As you say, 9th in 4th down conversions, 21st in 3rd down. That's obviously below average, but they can do some stuff. But as soon as they cross that 20, as soon as they get into the red zone, the offense just shuts down. They can't do jack it. And I hate ragging on the guy because obviously he is a good quarterback, even though he looks like the guy from Toy Story 1. But Derek Carr as a red zone quarterback is shocking. What we've seen the past couple of weeks with Goff, that is what Derek Carr has been in the red zone for the past couple of years. He just keeps turning the ball over. And honestly, if I was the offensive coordinator, as soon as you cross that 20, I'm shifting Carr out. I'm putting Taysom Hill at quarterback because he can offer you more. Because obviously in the red zone, that threat of him running could really do some things for you. As another dimension to what the defense has to put in there for the red zone, it makes it harder for them. They've already backed up in 20. They don't have that much space to work with. Just add a different dimension to it. So obviously they've got good players like Chris Olave is a really good receiver. Alvin Kamara, what we're hoping Gibbs can turn out to be, minus the Vegas stuff. Don't want the Vegas stuff with Gibbs, please. But that's what we want. But yeah, Penning, that's a flop of a first round pick. Like, traded up for him, drafted him out of Northern Iowa. He already had a reputation for being a bit over exorbitant with his physicality, let's put it that way. And it's coming to bear. Like, he's already got effectively benched as a first round pick within like a couple of years of being picked. They're putting Andrews P2, isn't good, very injury prone in his career as well. Was a left guard for most of his career, obviously with Tyron Armstead next to him at left tackle, and now they're having to push him out there. There's weaknesses on this offensive line. Cesar Ruiz as well, I know, so they can slide him over to center when if the McCoy doesn't go. But again, I remember I was trying to go from. They have some weaknesses on their offensive line, which hopefully we can exploit. I'm having to say hopefully now because obviously we all know quite well Hutch can perform, Aline can perform. No one else on that defensive line seems to. We really need to, at least in the pass game. Run game, we're great. We could stop the run for days on that defensive line. Run a pass game, we can't pass rush to save our lives. Can we please change this game to make that happen? I know we've got the sound linebackers out for that. It's not working. Do something else, please, Glenn and John Scott. If you're somehow listening to us, if you are, what the hell are you doing? You should be game planning or running training. Get your asses in gear. But yeah, like, they've definitely got pieces on the offense and in the right hands, and with maybe a better quarterback, this could be a really damn good offense. Like Michael Thomas, as much as he's slant boy, and I was hoping him and CJ will both be healthy because I want to see that fight again. Just them two against each other. They've already had words on Twitter. Bring it onto the football field. Let's see who wins the battle. That's not going to happen, which is unfortunate, but he's really good at possession receiver. Chris Olave is damn good. Shaheed is a really good deep threat and punt returner. He's in that sort of Khalif Raymond zone of where if you play fantasy, you might know who he is, but if you're just a normal NFL fan and you say to him, oh yeah, here's Rashid Shaheed, no one's going to know who the fuck you're talking about. But he's damn good. There's pieces there on this offense, and it could be good. It just needs the right offensive coordinator and the right quarterback. And unfortunately, they're tied into Derek Carr. So they've got to make some change at offensive coordinator at least to get something working for him, because otherwise that's another huge chunk of money that basically just shoved down the toilet and flushed.
And talking about opening drive woes, we'll come on to the defensive side of this in a minute, but hopefully the Lions can get off to a good start, because on offense, the Saints have gone in order: field goal, punt, punt, field goal, punt, miss field goal, punt, 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 punt. They have not scored an opening drive touchdown this season, and in fact, on opening drives, they've only scored 6 points so far this season. So hopefully, well, I mean, the Lions make a habit of breaking other people's records, so let's not praise them.
Exactly.
Sorry.
I was about to say, sounds like us coming back to the half.
Yeah, I know. Tell me about it. Right, let's move on to the defensive side of the ball before TJ gets here very shortly. They are led statistically in tackles by Demario Davis, the mid linebacker. 3 passes defended, a forced fumble, 4 sacks, 79 tackles, 6 tackles for a loss, 7 quarterback hits, a PFF grade of 85.8. Spectacularly good from that middle linebacker position. Defensive end, Carl Granderson is Carl, isn't it? I'm doubting myself now. Please say yes, it is. Thank you. Is the sack leader. 1 forced fumble and a fumble recovery, 5.5 sacks, 54 tackles, 10 tackles for a loss, 14 quarterback hits, and a PFF grade of 78.5. Cornerback Paulson Adebo is the leading person for interceptions, with 4 interceptions, 13 passes defended, 2 forced fumbles and 2 fumble recoveries, 40 tackles, and a team leading, I'm pretty sure it's team leading, it is a team leading PFF grade of 90.3. And then how can you not mention the safety Tyrann Mathieu? 3 interceptions and a touchdown scored last week. 6 passes defended, 48 tackles, a quarterback hit, and a PFF grade of 77.1. Other good grades in there: Cam Jordan, the defensive end. He might be getting on in years, but his production hasn't stopped. 76.7 for him. And the defensive tackle, Malcolm Roach. It is Malcolm again, isn't it? Please tell me it is.
Yeah.
Thank you. He might be a backup, but he's getting a very good grade of 73.1. poorer grades in there, and you mentioned him as a good slot corner, but PFF has him as 50.8, Alontae Taylor. The defensive tackle Shepard's a 50.1, and Brian Brzee, the rookie from Clemson, 45.5. In terms of defensive efficiency, it's where they come to life, apart from maybe within the 20s. But let's see. Third down, they don't allow conversions on 64.4% of the time. So they are fantastic at stopping people getting third downs, only allowing it on 35.6% of the time. 8th in the NFL. And fourth down, also 8th. But in the red zone, however, 17 touchdowns on 31 trips. That's 54.8% if I can read. And that's 19th in the NFL. So they slip all the way from 8th in third and fourth down to 19th in the red zone. However, I will point out that 31 trips in the red zone is significantly less than the 40 trips to the red zone their offense has had themselves. So they haven't been fantastic in the red zone, but they don't actually often let people into the red zone, Ash. And it's that aspect of things which has me worried, because we're actually quite good at scoring out of the red zone. But that's where this defense is fantastic. And, you know, the grades are really high because, as you rightly mentioned when we're talking about this team overall, the defense is good.
Yeah, it is. And I'm sorry, there is going to be a slight aside because a certain practice reports come out, and it's decent news sometimes. I'm so sorry for this. It's like Anzalone, Ragnow, no practice. Ragnow's rest. Let's not panic there, please. It's sad. But everyone else, full practice. So Hooker, Jackson, Effie, Monty, and Tracy, all full practice, which is damn good to hear, especially Jonah, because we've seen what this offensive line is like without him, and coming up against, I know, obviously, some of them have had good grades, especially Brian Brzee. There are pieces on this defensive line that, if they can get past you, they can cause damage. Like Granderson, who would have thought he would be the sort of team leader on defensive line when you've got Cam Jordan, who's like top 5-10 edge defender in the league the past couple of years on there. Like Maruch, he was someone I remember us looking at in the offseason, maybe someone to sign because of the connections. They've got good players on that defensive line who can stop the run, get after the quarterback. It just hasn't all come together for them. And then Mario Davis, Jesus, if we could have him instead of like him and Anzalone as like veteran guys. I know obviously got Jack Campbell, hopefully he can do that well. Derek Barnes, Malcolm, who might be the first player to start a game on both offense and defense for a team since 1962 with Chuck Bednarik for the Eagles. That'd be a fun fact for me to spew out on Sunday if it happens. But Mario Davis is just so good at middle linebacker. I know he's getting up there. He's in his 30s, but that man can read a game like no one else at linebacker. Pretty much him and Wagner, I think, are the best like sort of processing linebackers there in the league. And then Debo coming back from a bad year last year. Lattimore sort of doing his Lattimore thing where he's good in the big games, but as soon as you put him in the little games, nothing, he's shite. Debo's been pretty damn good this season for them. Like, I'm kind of jealous in a way because he's been getting his hands. He's getting turnovers. I know obviously Jerry's got a couple of picks, but he's been making turnovers, and that's one thing that this defense is good at, is forcing the turnovers. It's just that the offense doesn't score from them. So I think it was the Bears game. They got 5 takeaways from the Bears. They scored a total of 0 points from those turnovers. Admittedly, one wasn't near the end, so they just deaded the game, just to end the game. That's fine. But yeah, they can force turnovers on you, and that's a bit concerning where we've been the past couple of weeks. Not pointing any fingers, but a certain quarterback turning over the ball 6 times in 2 games. That worries me a tiny bit coming up against them because they can turn the ball over when they want to, as I keep saying. Like, I mean, it's interceptions.
Just to highlight, they have 20 turnovers this season, the defense. That's 3rd in the NFL.
Exactly. It's worrying when we've been where we are. Hopefully, as I keep saying, and future Ash, if this proves wrong again, feel free to use like the facepalm gif again. Hopefully we sorted these turnover problems over, because that's what's really holding us back, especially our offense. And as I say, it's a bit concerning when it comes against a defense that if they know how to do anything, it's to force turnovers. So that's something I'm going to be. Luckily, obviously, we all saw yesterday the awkward clips of like Goff and that doing the cat and mouse drills and ball security. That's something we've got to prioritize this week against this defense.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a defense which gives me plenty of cause for concern. And I mean, a couple more things here. Second in interceptions with 14. Second in average time of defensive drive. The average amount of time per drive that they're on the field is 2 minutes 29 seconds. Like, that's just nuts. 5.5 plays per drive, second in the NFL. Points against, 1.62 per drive, sixth in the NFL. This team is just great across the board. The one thing that I did spot is they're 23rd in terms of rushing yards allowed. So if we look at, perhaps a little bit more matchup related stuff, and I know this was going to be left a bit more until TJ had come on, but if there's one way, Ash, maybe the Lions can get at the Saints, it comes with what the Lions regard as their identity, and it's going to be running the ball. It didn't go great last week. Hopefully the Lions can get back right doing what they do best.
Yeah, well, I guess it didn't go right last week because we forced ourselves into our hole early and we had to sort of abandon it. But this week it looks good.
Sorry about Ash. There we go. We're back.
Oh, for God damn it, internet! It doesn't want to hear my great analysis. I was saying we had to abandon the run last week, unfortunately, because we got ourselves into a hole. We couldn't really do it. We had to start throwing the ball to catch up. This should be a good game for Monty, for Gibbs, to running ball. Dare I say it? A few Khalif and Jamo end arounds and stuff. Maybe one of the trademark Amon Ra handoffs from like inline. That's where we need to focus. But at the same time, we need to keep them honest, passing the ball. I know their secondary is really damn good, as we keep saying, but run the ball and then take the shots when we can.
Oh, and if I can get my layout correct, because I don't have this automatically set up. But TJ Jones is in the house. How you doing, TJ?
Hey, how you doing, man? Appreciate you all, and thank you for having me.
No, we're really lucky to have you back after we, I'm sure, ruined your draft weekend by having you on with us then. Thank you for coming on, because I know that you've had family stuff to attend to earlier tonight. But yeah, just talk to our Lions listeners who may not have seen you in the draft about you and what you do and the state of the Saints and all the other little bits you have going too.
Yeah, well, my name is TJ Jones. I am the host, got to do it, of the State of the Saints podcast. I've been covering the New Orleans Saints since 2018. I'm a native of New Orleans. I was born and raised there. Been a Saints fan my entire life, and just do a podcast focusing on my favorite team. And I'm just happy to be here. Matt Nash, thank you so much for having me, man.
Appreciate it very, very much. We've gone through the statistical analysis and just the raw stats of what's going on with the Saints. They're 5-6. Their strength of schedule hasn't been the hardest, and it won't be the hardest in the rest of your slate. It's not the worst looking lineup that you have. So you're 5-6. What has been the thing which has defined your season the most? Obviously, the Atlanta game last week really, really hurts. But Carr comes in, marquee free agent signing, because since Breeze, it's not really been quite right. Jameis didn't set the world alight, and he's been up and down too. I mean, I can't figure this team out, because you go and score 34 on the Pats, you go and score 24 against the Jags, 38 against the Colts, but then, last week with the 15 against the Falcons, the 9 against Tampa, it's a very, up and down team on offense.
Yeah, I mean, they're terrible. Like they're not very good. Like I'm not one of those fans that just wave the pom poms. I try to be as honest as I can. They're just inconsistent. Some you don't know what you're going to get from week to week. You have games where they'll play the Patriots and they'll shut the Patriots out, or then the next week they're getting blown out. It's just a lot of up and down, and they struggle to have an identity. There's been a big talk this week among Saints fans, because of Alvin Kamara's comments about the Saints not having an identity, and Dennis Allen disagreeing with that. But if you look at this team, they have no identity. They do things without any rhyme or reason. It's kind of like one of those things where you try to throw something against the wall, hope that it stick. And you're not going to have consistency like that, and you're not going to win a lot of football games. And to be quite honest with you, Matt Nash, the only reason why we're having this conversation about are they good at all is because they play in a division that's not very good. I mean, the NFC South is a terrible division. And the reason why you have a head coach like Dennis Allen that still has a possibility of keeping a job after the 2023 season is because they play in a division that's, once again, not very good. And you're going up against a team in the Detroit Lions who do a lot of things well. And also a lot of the things that plagued you last week and why you got beat, the Detroit Lions do well. I mean, you think about Bijan Robinson and Tyler Algier for the Atlanta Falcons. Well, now you got David Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs to deal with. I mean, it's kind of the same thing. So if you couldn't neutralize the Atlanta Falcons and their offensive line, you're not going to be able to neutralize, in my opinion, one of the best offensive lines in football and two very, very good running backs. And I heard you all talking about the running backs of the Lions, and you're absolutely right. That is going to be the issue, in my opinion, and that's one of the keys to victory to me. Will the Saints be able to stop them? And they haven't shown me that they can.
But then the matchup is going to be really interesting because of how bad the Lions' offensive line was against the Packers last week. I mean, Rashawn Gary really tore us a new one, and our left tackle really well. So we had a backup left guard. Taylor Decker at left tackle really struggled against him, and the rest of the offensive line, under the pressure of it folding down that side, just didn't function as a unit at all. So you guys have Carl Granderson, who's having a great year, Cam Jordan on the other side. It feels like that is the matchup of the game to me, because if you can fold that offensive line, and your defense has performed this year pretty damn well, that could be the big equalizer, right?
Yeah, I mean, it can be, but once again, Matt, it's a lot of up and down. Like, I was listening to you all, and I heard some of the statistics, but to me, you can't really put statistics in play when it comes to the Saints, because once again, it's a lot of up and down. And yes, it should be an interesting matchup. And Carl Granderson has shown flashes this season, but it's been games where he didn't show up. And you know, and also when you think about the Green Bay Packers, I mean, that's a divisional game. So it's no secret. Everybody knows everybody. You know, everybody knows how to neutralize your best players. Everybody kind of goes into that game. You don't want to let Amon-Ra St. Brown, loose. You don't want to let Jahmyr Gibbs, hurt you with the passing game and running between the tackles. And I mean, so to me, I just feel like that was just one of those games, any given Sunday. But I just think when I look at both of these teams, they do a lot of things well. But I look at the Detroit Lions. They have a lot of they're playing for. They have one of the best records they've had in years. And, you're going to sputter down the stretch when you're learning how to be a consistent football team. So I expect for them to play much better. And I expect for the New Orleans Saints to play a little bit better. The fact that you got a lot of people wondering, are they going in the right direction as far as the coaching staff and the leadership up top? So I expect for them to be able to respond because, normally when we have these type of conversations when it comes to the Saints, they seem to respond. They're a little bit of a reactionary team. When people are saying that they're the worst team in football, they find themselves like looking like one of the best. So this should be an interesting game.
Absolutely. So coming back to the offense, and I'll talk about the defense in more depth in just a minute. Ash was talking about Derek Carr and his red zone woes. And what is it about this team, do you think, that makes them quite... I mean, because they are very efficient in between the 20s. But in the 20s, they just don't seem to be able to move the ball. They're prone to big mistakes. The pick six last week was case in point. But that's not the first time something like that has happened this season. Why...
Right.
Why have they struggled to operate in the red zone, do you think?
It's just the inconsistency. And it's also the lack of innovation. If you don't change with the times, you're going to get left behind. And you look at some of these teams out here right now, they do a lot of pre-snap motion. They come up with different creative ways to get their playmakers involved. But it just seems like the Saints are kind of stuck in neutral. They seem back in the past that Sean Payton and Drew Brees type philosophies have worked. And it just seems like they can't get past that. And I just think that when you look at them, yeah, they can move the football, but you also have a quarterback that historically has struggled in the red zone. This isn't something that just happened with the Saints. If you look throughout Derek Carr's career, he struggles in the red zone, and has. And, it's one of those things where there's this old saying, a tiger never changes stripes. Like, you can put him in a different situation, but he's still a tiger. And this is the thing that has plagued him throughout his career. And unless he really just, settles down and realizes that this is an issue and really focus on it, then you're going to continue to have the same issues. There's a lot of talent on this football team, but they've struggled to get everybody involved. And, I think it's going to be a reoccurring thing under this coaching staff.
And what do you make about what's going on at wide receiver? Because obviously Michael Thomas is on IR. Olave going through concussion protocol. Looks like he's on track to pass it, but it's, still 50-50 at this point. Rashid Shaheed doesn't look like he'll go, and he's been a revelation this season. And then you've got A.T. Perry, Lynn Bowden, who have shown flashes, but maybe they're not the most safe, low, high floor guys that you can put out there. So are you going to have to turn to kind of heavy sets, running the ball a bit more, tight ends being on the field? What is the strategy going to be, do you think, if some of these guys are out? Because you've only got 5 active wide receivers on the team.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be tough for the New Orleans Saints. They're going to have to find ways to move the football down the field. I mean, of course, Chris Olave, before he left the game with a concussion, he went over 100 yards, and that was in the first half. So it seemed like he was trending in the right direction. You lose Michael Thomas in the game versus the Minnesota Vikings in Week 11. But, that's the thing. You have some young, talented players on your practice squad, but you're going to have to find ways to move the ball and rely on individuals like Alvin Kamara, getting Juwan Johnson involved. They're going to have to find a way, and some are going to have to step up in order to make this game competitive. I think that they have a lot of young, talented guys. I think the biggest issue is they struggle to try to get these guys involved. And that's one of the main reasons why I feel like a lot of people don't know how good they can actually be. So the Saints have to do their due diligence and try to find ways to get some of these young playmakers involved to see what they're made out of, and maybe they can live up to their true potential against Detroit.
So from the sound of it all, do your problems, do you think, stem them primarily from coaching on offense rather than personnel?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I think that this coaching staff, you got a lot of layovers from the Sean Payton, Drew Brees era. Pete Carmichael, the offensive coordinator, has been with the team for 15 seasons. You have Dennis Allen as the head coach. He's been with the team for quite some time, 2 stints as a defensive coordinator, now with the head coach. I just think that you have some guys who are, they know what they're doing. As far as Dennis Allen, great defensive mind. Pete Carmichael, I think he understands offense, but I also think you have some guys that mostly play like behind the scenes guys, not really the individuals you want in leadership roles. And I also think that they're more of the coaches that are recipients of great quarterback play. Like, for example, if the Saints had Tom Brady as their quarterback, I think that they'll be okay because he can be able to rise above coaching. But when you look at some of these individuals like the Derek Carrs, like some of these other young wide receivers, you have to have a coaching staff to develop those guys in order for them to, live up to their true potential. Another example, like think about Christian McCaffrey in his last years with the Carolina Panthers. It looked like he was going to, maybe retire in the next couple of years. And then he goes with Kyle Shanahan, and now he has this resurgence, and he looks like the best running back in football. Coaching matters, and it matters who is coaching. And I feel like that is why the Saints have been inconsistent. And that's one of the reasons why I feel like some of these younger players haven't really lived up to their true potential. So I think it's something that the Saints may need to look at the end of the season and wonder to themselves, are these the coaches that we need to lead this team for the foreseeable future? But right now, it doesn't look like.
Ash, any questions for TJ on the offense?
So obviously, at least for our team, it starts up front with the offense line. It's kind of the same with you guys. Obviously, I know Eric McCoy. I know the injury reports just come out and I think he's practiced again. And obviously, you've got Ryan Ramczyk, who is one of the best right tackles in the league. That's perhaps not named Penei Sewell. But then you look at the other side, and it's kind of not as good. It's obviously, I know Andrews Pete is the left tackle, used to be the left guard next to Armstead, have to flex out there when you lose him, unfortunately, to the Dolphins. Cesar Ariz, who I remember Lions fans being interested in during the draft when he came out as potentially coming to us, obviously used to play Michigan.
Right.
And then obviously Trevor Penning, like you traded up for him in the first round. What's gone sort of like, what schematically maybe, or is it the players themselves has kind of gone wrong on that left-hand side when that sort of right-hand side's so good? Like you've got the centre, you've got the right tackle, so reasons to the right guard. But that left side, like, is it because Carr's holding on to the ball too long? Are the backs not really hitting the holes there? Or is it just something going wrong on that side schematically that's not letting them live up to their potentials maybe?
Well, I think it has a lot to do with coaching as well. But I will say this about the offensive line. It has gotten better. The first few games of the season, it just wasn't working. I mean, name your pass rusher, they were getting double-digit sacks. I mean, the most mediocre pass rusher was still able to get to the quarterback. I think it is a combination a little bit of Derek Carr holding on to the ball too long, but it was also the fact that Trevor Penning, the left tackle that they drafted last year, struggled. And, they had to kind of reevaluate things. They decided to put Andrews Pete as left tackle. It's something that he's kind of familiar with. If you look at Andrews Pete, he's played all across the line. When the Saints drafted him a couple of years back, I want to say 2012 or 2013, he was the left tackle. And, of course, like when Teron Armstead started to develop, they slid him to the guard position. But Andrews Pete has done a pretty formidable job since they've put him at left tackle. And the offensive line has not been the issue as of late. I mean, even when Alvin Kamara has been running the football, he's averaging 3.8 yards a carry. But over the last couple of weeks, he's been getting up there to 4 or 5 yards average. But the problem is the Saints have not been able to cash in with touchdowns, so they have to get away from the run. So the offensive line has improved. And, I think that they'll do a formidable job. They're going to have to because you all know, I mean, the Detroit Lions, they have some really good pass rushers, some young guys that can get after the quarterback, Aiden Hutchinson. I heard you all talk about Alex Anzalone. He can come on a blitz. He's leading your team in tackles right now. Derek Barnes. So you got a bunch of guys that can get to the quarterback. So they're going to have to make sure that they bring their A game because this is a really good young Detroit Lions team, and they got to be able to bring it.
Well, if you think they can get to the quarterback, can you please tell our defensive coaching staff that? Because Hutch can, Aleem can, but everyone else just seems to be focusing on the run and aren't really getting to the quarterback, which is why we were having to use Anzalone. It's looking like he's unfortunately not going to get to play in his return to the Superdome this week because he's had a hand injury and his wife's looking like she's going to give birth. So it is going to be a bit more Derek Barnes than that. Unfortunate. Yeah, he's unfortunate because obviously, and that maybe brings on the next question. Obviously, we have a lot of connections between the teams. Obviously, Anzalone, CJ GJ, who unfortunately isn't going to play either with his torn pec. He's looking like he's going to hopefully come back around Christmas time. What a lovely present for the coaching staff to unwrap for themselves in a shiny former league leader in interceptions. But obviously, got Dan Campbell, who used to be on the tight ends coach, assistant head coach view, and Aaron Glenn. So many connections to the team. Do you think that's going to sort of play into this match a bit, as in we know each other a bit too well and you're going to get that sort of duking battle? Or do you think it's just going to be by the wayside and it's not really going to impact the matchup at all?
I think in some ways it can help that the fact that you understand the coaching staff. Last week, the New Orleans Saints played the Atlanta Falcons. Their new defensive coordinator is Ryan Nielsen. He came from the Saints, of course. Do I think that played a role last week? No. And do I feel like it will play a significant role this week? Probably not. I mean, everybody knows everybody, of course, but, I think it's going to come down to who can play better, who can make very little mistakes, who can capitalize on if a team does make mistakes, and also taking advantage of opportunities. So I don't think it's going to play a huge role, but I will say this. I'm very impressed at what I've been seeing out of head coach Dan Campbell. I think that the philosophy that he has brought to Detroit, it kind of meshes with the whole entire city. And, I think that the energy that he has come with has really turned that organization around. And it's great to see. I mean, looking at a team that has been an underdog for many years, Now they're starting to become one of the best teams in football. You got to be impressed with it. But do I feel like, it's going to affect, the fact that they know the New Orleans Saints and they've been on the same coaching staff? I don't. But I think it's going to come down to who's the better team.
I'm just having a look and seeing how many sacks we've had this year, because it feels like we haven't had many in the last 4 weeks. We've had 23, which is not great, I don't think, through 11 games. But yeah, never mind.
Exactly, and it's like we've had, and most of those were the first couple of weeks. Like I remember us looking before the Packers game, we've had 2 the past couple of games, and that was both against Justin Fields. Like it's been an issue.
Yeah, it has been an issue. Turning to your defense then, and they've only conceded, the 9th most points in the NFL, so they are a stingy defense. And considering your woes in the 20s on offense, you might think that would be giving other teams plenty of opportunities to score, and that just hasn't been the case, with Davis just continuing to kind of belay his sort of his age, because he's playing some of the best ball of his career. Grandson's come on, we talked about him earlier, but Paul Adebo has really taken the mantle. Tyrann Mathieu's been fantastic, not forgetting Cam Jordan. Some of your backups have been playing really well as well. What are, the strengths and weaknesses of the defense that you've seen? Are they schematically getting it right on defense, that they're not on offense? Do you think that's maybe part of Dennis Allen having still his impact from the head coaching position on the defense? What is it about this defense that makes itself special? How does it hang its hat, do you think?
Well, if you look at it, Matt, I mean, a lot of the numbers that you're looking at, to me, is kind of similar to what you all were alluding to with the Detroit Lions at the beginning of the season, the 23 sacks. The numbers are kind of skewed because they had such a really good, season, opening season, just the first couple games, shutting down the Patriots, and also being very, very effective until the offense tries to figure it out. But if you look the last 3 or 4 games, you'll see that they've been inconsistent. Like in the first half, I mean, teams have been lighting them up. They've been susceptible to scrambling quarterbacks, no matter who it is. Teams have been able to put points up on them. And it's been very, very little pass rush. I mean, I love Cam Jordan. I mean, he's an Iron Man, doesn't miss games. He's in his 13th season. I mean, he's not the Cam Jordan that he used to be. And then you have Carl Granderson, once again, I mean, a talented guy, but it kind of comes and goes when it comes to sack and getting pressures. This is not a consistent defense. I mean, can they make stops when necessary? Yes. Has Parcel Adebo played better? Absolutely. But when it comes down to it, there are things that teams can do to neutralize. I mean, if you look at the Atlanta Falcons last week, over 230 yards rushing against this team. They did a lot of things in the offseason to try to get faster on the interior, and it has not really translated over the last 4 games. So that's why I say, like, when you look at running backs like Jahmyr Gibbs, David Montgomery, there are opportunities where they can actually go out and, make plays and take advantage of the way that the defense has been playing. So I think that a lot of people look at this team and say, oh, they have a really good defense because, like everything that happened at the beginning of the season. But if you look at it now, they have not played consistent over the last 4 games.
That surprises me, just because of how I feel about the team, and maybe that's just my nostalgia for the Saints generally. They are just that team on defense. But I look at it and I just think even the depth is there. We were talking about this before. You got Cam Dantzler, and we know him quite well. As a backup corner, that's fantastic. And I know Alontae Taylor has been up and down, but he's been a solid player too. You've got Foskey back there. I know Peyton Turner's on IR, but Brazil, a lot of people liked at Clemson. There's just a lot of moving pieces there that I really enjoy. And, Jared Goff has struggled over the past couple of weeks with, not seeing things or not releasing the ball under pressure, not unlike Derek Carr, perhaps. So do you think, in terms of the matchup with the Lions specifically, that the Saints match up quite well with them? How do you see that going?
Well, when I look at all the things that Detroit Lions do, I understand that Jared Goff has been turning the ball over. I want to say he had like 4 interceptions a couple of weeks ago or something like that. I mean, but he has 18 touchdowns, 8 interceptions. And I mean, he's done a really good job, had that long streak of 384 games where he didn't throw a pick. But I just think when I look at the Detroit Lions, they do so many things well, and you got to give credit to Ben Johnson, the offensive coordinator. He's definitely going to be a top a top candidate for some of these head coaching jobs out here. And I just think that they have so many different talented guys. I mean, you got Amon-Ra St. Brown, you got Jameson Williams. Every time it seems like he get a target, he scores. Sam Laporta, to me, the best tight end that come out of the draft. And you combine that with a lot of talent, that they got from free agency and also the talent that they drafted. I think it's going to be a tough matchup for the New Orleans Saints. I really do. I think that when you look at both teams, when it comes to the tail of the tape will probably tell you that these teams are equally matched based on who they have. But I think it's going to come down to coaching and also execution. So how do the Saints line up? I just think that the Detroit Lions can execute a little bit better than the New Orleans Saints. And I also think despite the fact that he has turned the ball over quite a bit in Jared Goff, I still feel like there's more stability there at the quarterback position. Like at least you all know that more than likely Jared Goff is going to be able to drive the ball down the field to score a touchdown. As a Saints fan, I don't know. Like I don't know if Derek Carr is going to be able to get the ball into the end zone. Last time we saw the New Orleans Saints play, I mean, Blake Grupe, their kicker, was the offensive player of the game with 5 field goals. So I think it's going to come down to that, come down to execution. And I just think that Detroit just has that edge there.
I don't know why I've never considered this before, Ash, and maybe you've just occurred to you as well. But with Dennis Allen maybe on his way, why have we not considered Ben Johnson to the Saints?
Exactly, I know, yeah. Like
that makes all the sense in the world.
Yeah.
Compared to like the Chargers or Patriots or something, or the Panthers or whatever, the Saints make much more sense.
100%. Like,
oh, I'm sorry. I was gonna say this is how I feel. Okay, I feel like with Ben Johnson, this 2024, if he gets the opportunity, this is going to be his first head coaching job. And if you look at the New Orleans Saints, the way that the organization is structured right now, you're basically in cap hell every single year. You got a quarterback that you're not too sure about. You're committed to for the next 3 years. Has been not very good. And then also you have an aging team. I think that when you look at some of these guys who are trying to get their first opportunity as a head coach, they're looking to go into situations where you probably have a top 5, a top 10 pick, have some cap money to actually work with. I think when it comes to Dennis Allen, like, yes, I feel like they need to let him go. But I think with the Saints and in the situation and the position that they're in, I think they need to go with a coach that's had a head coaching job in the past, because they'll be more willing to come in and be able to embrace what's going on and be able to have the patience to fix it. And the fact that the fan base will actually recognize some of these coaches that will come in, they will understand that this coach has a pedigree of winning versus a brand new coach who you don't know anything about. I don't feel like the fan base would have that level of patience for him. So I think that, when it comes to Ben Johnson, I think that the Chargers probably would be a better move for him, because to me, they just need a good coach. Like Brandon Staley is not the answer. And I feel like with all the talent that they have, I think that will be an enticing spot. Carolina, I don't think that it would be an enticing spot. I mean, David Tepper just basically uses head coaches as a revolving door. So that's going to be a turnoff to a lot of guys. You can also look at Chicago and Eberflus and, like just different places like that where you have opportunities with young players and a lot of cap money to deal with. So to me, it would be an appealing spot if the Saints had some money to deal with and, a top pick. But I just feel like he probably would want to go somewhere where, people understand that, okay, I'm going to come up in here. I'm going to make an impact. I got some players to work with. So I think the Chargers are one of these teams that have a top 5 pick would be more enticing.
Fair. Getting back on topic, because we talked about one side of the matchup, but maybe not the other. So for the Saints offense, it has been efficient in places, misfiring in others, but it's coming into this game facing a Lions defense that is almost bottom of the league in the form table. They are I think 29th or 30th in total defense in the last few weeks. They are seemingly giving up points at will. They are not standing up to teams particularly well, especially against the pass. Still one of the better run defenses in the league, but against a pass, it's really shoddy. Jordan Love looked like an MVP last week. So, coming into this, it feels like two sides of the ball, a side of the ball for either team that kind of needs to get right. And I think both sides would feel like they have the opportunities to do so here.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. Defensively, there's been some plays that, the Detroit Lions defense have given up. But they're a battle-tested team. To me, this is a team that doesn't give up. I think about the game against the Chicago Bears and the way that game went. They could have easily phoned it in, but they didn't. They went and they fought and they got that victory. And, when you're trying to learn how to win in the National Football League, you're going to have some ups and downs. You're going to have some plays that you wish that you had back. But that's just the process. I look at what they have, and they're only going to get better. You've been drafting really well. You got some of your young players. They just need to develop. You look at Branch. He's playing outstanding. You got all of these different talented players. They just need to develop. And you also just need to get some really good drafts going. I like the way that Detroit is incorporating young players, combining that with free agency. I think that they're on the uptick. I just think that Detroit fans need to be a little bit patient when it comes to the defense. But I think that they will be susceptible to the pass, in my opinion. I think they're going to be giving up some big plays. And yes, they're at that point where they probably have you, throwing stuff or being frustrated about the way that they play. But that's just the growing pains. That's just the ebbs and flows of the game while you're trying to figure out how to be an elite team. And right now, they're taking the right steps. Are there going to be games where you think that the Detroit Lions are supposed to win and they don't? Yes. That's just the art of winning. But I just think when you match these teams up together, I just feel like Detroit is way more structured. And I feel like I trust them a lot more than I trust this New Orleans Saints team.
Some questions from you?
So, yeah, as you said, obviously you feel like we're susceptible to the pass, which has kind of been proven right the past couple of weeks. You could see me visibly shudder as I remember the first play of the Thanksgiving game. But obviously that comes back to Glenn. Is there something you can see that maybe is a holdover from his time with you guys? So I remember obviously his first year as secondary coach, you were 32nd against the pass, and then it's when you got Marshawn Lattimore, you started pumping resources into it, he's turned it around. Is there something with the kind of scheme that he likes to run? Because obviously I think it's still a holdover for what he runs for you guys with the two high safety shells, corner sort of mixing man and zone, which kind of to last year with heavy man, this time it's heavy zone, even though supposedly PFF say we're running more man last week, which I don't agree with. Is there something that's a holdover from his the sort of New Orleans scheme that perhaps we just need to settle into here and just allow it to work, and then eventually when he gets the resources it will work? Or is there actually cause for concern, and the fans who are already starting to maybe look around to see who we can place Glenn with, because he's had 3 years with us, we haven't seen that much improvement on the back end? Is there smoke to that? Is there fire where there's smoke kind of thing?
Yeah, I think it is. One thing about Aaron Glenn as a coach when he was with the Saints, he wasn't one of those guys that yell in your face, and he was a guy that treated the players like adults. And sometimes I just feel like he didn't really hold a lot of the members of the secondary accountable. There were a lot of times where I feel like the technique was pretty bad. Players didn't have their head turned around. If they did, they probably would have had interceptions. It's just one of those situations where I just feel like he is who he is. You're going to take some good, you're going to take some bad. But I just think that based on the way I see the Lions secondary, that's what you're going to get with Aaron Glenn. So that's a decision that the Detroit Lions are going to have to make in the offseason as well. Do they want to retain Aaron Glenn and go forward? To me, I feel like you're probably going to get the same thing, because the way that you all are in the secondary when it comes to the defense is the same way the Saints was. They gave up big plays. a lot of missed assignments, blown assignments from time to time, and also just bad technique. So to me, I feel like this is who Aaron Glenn is. I like him. I had opportunity to speak with him. He's a good person. I can understand why players like him, but at the same time, I feel like there's something missing there every time. Like his hand is somewhere near the defense. The secondary of the New Orleans Saints, their numbers were really, really low when it came to turnovers under his watch. So that's something I feel like the Lions organization needs to look at.
Couple more things to cover with you just before we finish, because I know we're short on time. First up, we're going to do some keys to victory, and then we're going to do score predictions. So, TJ, the way I frame this is maybe a bit different to some other people, just because it's nice to be unique. So, I want you to assume that the Saints have come away from the Superdome with maybe, from what you're saying, is maybe slightly an upset victory for the New Orleans Saints. They come back to 500, maybe the Falcons slip up, you're in the lead in the NFC South again. If you beat the Lions on Sunday, how did it happen? Like, kind of script it up for us. What did the Saints do right to win this game?
It will have to be Jared Goff had a game like the Chicago Bears, where you're giving the offense ample opportunities, and the defense would have to play discipline. Getting those turnovers, turn them into points. Maybe if you get into the red zone 4 times, maybe score 2 touchdowns. It would have to be something like that. It would have to be Jared Goff just has like one of those off games, and you all's running game it just not being effective. So that will be the keys to victory. I would have to say the short field because of what you all alluded to earlier about some of the injuries to the wide receiver position. You're not going to have Rashid Shaheed out there. You're not going to have Michael Thomas. Chris Olave's status is up in the air right now, so you're actually dealing with a lot of young players. So that means that you're probably going to have some growing pains and some mistakes. So the defense is going to have to step up, create some short fields for the offense to be able to work. So that would be the keys to victory and how the Saints will be able to pull off the upset.
All right, and if we had to get a score prediction out of you, how do you think it's going to go?
If I can get a score prediction, I would say that the Detroit Lions will score 27 and the Saints would score 17.
Oh, wow. That shocked me that you think it's going to be that far away. Do you think 10 points is how it's going to go, difference?
Yeah, I really do, because I look at the Detroit Lions. Like I said, they're offensively efficient. And I just feel like, they're going to be able to execute. And it's probably going to be one of those games where I feel like the Detroit Lions will have control of the game for the majority of it. And then, of course, you're probably going to get some late game heroics because the way that the Detroit Lions probably switch it up. Maybe, instead of them playing like a certain type of defense, they're probably a lot of, get a little softer. The Saints will probably take advantage of some of the soft spots in zone, and they'll be able to matriculate the ball down the field, maybe score a touchdown. But, to me, I just feel like when it's all going to come down to coaching, situational football, and execution. And then you combine the coaching staff of the Detroit Lions and also the fact that everybody expected for the Detroit Lions to take that extra step forward on Thanksgiving, and it didn't happen. I feel like that's going to be more motivation. On top of the fact that you're still in a race for top position or the number 2 spot with the San Francisco 49ers. So right now, you can't afford to slip up. And I feel like this team is going to be dialed in and focused. And, if the Lions are dialed in and focused, they're already a really good football team. That's just going to make them even more effective.
Your lips to God's ears, TJ. We're coming to the end of our time, so why don't you let the fellas know where to come and follow you, because you've been fantastic for the last couple of interviews we've had, so we need to get you some more follows.
Thank you so much, Matt Nash. I really do appreciate it. Once again, my name is TJ Jones, the host of the State of the Saints podcast. You can follow me on X, formerly known as Twitter, at TJAYJones8. And also you can check out the State of the Saints podcast on youtube.com. Search the State of the Saints podcast.
Fantastic. Thank you so much again, TJ. You've been fantastic, and hopefully we'll see you come draft time, perhaps.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you all for having me. I really do appreciate it, and good luck on Sunday.
You too. Cheers, TJ.
Cheers.
Cheers.
All right, Ash. couple more bits before we finish up here, perhaps. And first, we perhaps should start with our own keys to victory. So if the Lions are going to win this game, maybe it's the exact opposite of what TJ said. I don't know. But what do we need to do?
Yep, pretty much saw the words out of my mouth. Just limit the turnovers. This is a turnover forcing defense, and that's what we've done this past couple of weeks, and it's not been fun to see. We need sort of, I'm going to say the scary word. I'm going to say the scary word that might cause a few shows videos. We need to go back to fundamentals on offense. I know, I felt bad saying it, but we can't. It's 2 weeks. It might just be a slip up. If it's a third week where we turn over the ball multiple times, it becomes a trend, and that's worrying where we want to go this season. We want to be, at the end of the season, win the NFC North, host a playoff game, and win it. If we keep turning the ball over, that becomes under threat, especially when we come up against, for example, Dallas, who now have a player who has got the NFL record for most pick sixes in a year with Deron Bland. They've got 2 playmaking corners. So the Saints, we need to limit the turnovers, use our weapons, though, because, as we say, they're not so good against the run, but we can also pass on. We've got Amon-Ra. They've the Pride of Detroit preview they had with their reporter said they're vulnerable against tight ends. Sam Laporte again. There's ways for us to win on offense, and then on defense, it's just pressure Carr. I know Hutch and Aleem, we'll get to it. We just need someone else to step up, just one more player. Because if we can have one player at least force a sack or 2, hopefully like Charles Harris or something, just someone step up, then we've got a chance, because we can take that into the future weeks. But it has to be this week. We have to start putting the foundations now, because we're coming up to December. We're coming up to the real big boy time. This is where big boy football's played. This is not September anymore where everyone's slip up. December, you're supposed to have your shit together and you're supposed to be driving. It's what happens usually for the Patriots. You remember they would always start kind of slow. They'd lose a couple of games. When it comes to December, they would be unstoppable. That's what we need to do now. So that's what I'm looking for. Just limit the turnovers, sack Carr.
And in terms of how you think it is going to go and your score prediction, what do you actually predict?
Trying to work out, Ahmed. Lions 34, Saints 20.
Wow. That is a lot of points against a team that doesn't give up much. For myself, I mean, the guys have spoken very adequately about this matchup and what have you, so I'm not going to rehash any of that. But my score prediction, I do not see a lot of points. I see a game dominated by teams running the ball and kicking field goals. I just think they're going to get a rehashing of the Falcons game with a Jared Goff scared to commit turnovers and goes hyper defensive, tries to throw the ball away a bit too quickly, checks down a bit too quickly. I think it's just going to be a sort of reactionary tale to that. And he'll start to build up his confidence again through that process, because he's going through a rebuild right now. 2 games, poor play, and you can't expect him to come out firing. He's got a strong backbone. He is very thick-skinned. We've seen that throughout his Lions career. At the same time, you can't be immune to what's happened to him. So I think this is going to be like maybe a touchdown, 2 touchdowns to the Lions, 1 to the Saints, but more field goals for the Saints' way. So maybe if I try and calculate that in my head, we're talking about 20
17.
23, 23-20, 23-19. Can I make 19 work? 4 field goals and a touchdown? Yeah. 23-19. I don't think either team's going to blow either one away. It's going to be close all the way. There will be periods of play where it feels like either team's in the ascendancy. I feel like it's going to be a frustrating game for both sets of fans.
Yeah. I hope you can hear me sort of like visibly going into like, I want. That's maybe I am going a bit copium with the 34, where I'm just like, the offense will come right. It will get out of this rut it's in, turning the ball over, and it will explode again, because we know it can. It kept pace with the Chargers. But again, there is that scary bit where maybe it is becoming a trend, and maybe Goff does revert back to early 2021 Goff, where he's checking it down. I just have faith we have more playmakers to turn those 5-yard dump offs into stuff like Amon-Ra's Amon-Ra Bloody Brown, he can probably take 5-yard ins and that for 90, 8 receptions, 90 yards and a touchdown. We've got Gibbs, who, if he makes a linebacker miss, he can force a big play. J-Mo, like we saw last week with the crossing patterns, he can get involved. Maybe it's a bit copium that we have the playmakers to help Goff sort of dig himself out of that hole. So maybe, but I can see it going a number of ways, so long as it isn't just chip shot field goal City, and it is basically like a tennis score where it's just like, okay, we score 15, you score 12, like that kind of thing. I don't want that. I want actual touchdowns, because I know obviously they struggle with touchdowns. That's what we need to do. We need to be scoring touchdowns again.
We do. Right, I'm going to close out the audio show there. After that, on YouTube and Twitch, still live, the guys there, please stay with us while we sign off here. We're going to be talking listener questions. We're going to be talking the rest of the week's action. Our next show will be, hopefully, a college football podcast looking back at the final game of the regular season and looking ahead to championship weekends, where playoff hopefuls become solidified and where the pretenders become goners. I don't really know how I was going to end that sentence.
They get found out. Pretenders get found out.
There we go. You can follow us on Royal Lions UK on YouTube, Twitch, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok. And the group for worldwide fans is Detroit Lions Fans UK, One Pride Worldwide. The website, rotluk.com. Find our articles there. Really good stuff done by Ash all the way through the season. Please don't forget to subscribe and rate us 5 stars on your podcast provider. And just a quick shout out to our fans through this calendar year. Spotify Wrapped, and we do use Spotify to host our show, has come out with their stats for the year, and they have been just fantastic in the last 12 months. And let's just have a quick look again. So our listeners have gone up 46%, our streams have gone up 132%, and our followers have gone up 80%. There are 204 fans that have us as a top 10 podcast in their feed, and 14 of those, we're the number one show for them. And for a completely fan-led thing that just tries hard to listen to as much as possible, watch as much as we can, and give that back to you guys. The love that you've given us in return has been absolutely fantastic. So thank you for that. And hopefully we'll see you for the live reaction show on Sunday, where we will hopefully be just watching a very smooth Lions victory. But for now, thanks for doing this for me, Ash. Let's go Lions, One Pride.
One Pride.
Recording stopped.
And so let's talk questions and then the rest of the games. So there's only one question so far. Ken Stauder said, is that based on time watched? I am not sure what that's based on. I think listeners...
It is, I think with listeners it is based on how many minutes you listen to. So it might be that some shows have had we've had longer shows or stuff. Because I know, for example, mine, I'm third, and Pride Detroit's first, but that's because they pump out a lot of content. And then to expose myself a bit on the live, my top artist was Steps, and that's because obviously they're my consistent streamer. I think I've streamed out my 39,000 minutes of music I've listened to. I've probably listened to Steps about 7,000 of those. So
wow, that's elite. You must be a top 1%er somewhere.
I am a top 1% Steps fan, but to be fair, that's probably not that hard because it's Steps. I'm probably the only person that likes them these days.
I don't know about that, but yeah, I found out actually that I have listened to podcasts more than I've listened to music.
Yes, same, yeah.
Which is just nuts to me. I can't even believe that, really. Although apparently you can't have a look at Wrapped on the desktop app, which is a bit annoying. Where is it gone?
If you go into Google, because I did it for my mum yesterday, because that's when it came out. I was literally showing her mine.
Yeah.
If you go onto Google and just type in Spotify Wrapped, it will come up with the thing, and then you can go through it on
fair enough. That's cool.
I'll get my...
Ken Stauder said, you guys have to be in my top 10. I would like to see the list I view. Anyone know how? If you do what Asher said, search for Spotify Wrapped. If you use Spotify as your music player, then it should show you there.
The link is in both the YouTube and Twitch chats, my friends. Enjoy.
Right, so Joshua Mercer had a question. If anyone else has a question, get it in now or forever hold your peace. Joshua Mercer 7. What's going on with Isaiah Buggs? Is this performance-based or what? Some weeks it's injury, some weeks he isn't playing, other weeks it's scheme-related, and every week it seems like this man is saying it's a performance or preference issue when he tweets on X. What is going on with him? It's week 13 now, and I feel like we've had no real clarification here. What do you think?
It's a mix. I honestly, because we all know in the off season he was basically benched because he didn't come in fit. And then there's been some weeks where if you seemingly prefer to go lighter up the middle, and then there's some weeks where we prefer to go heavy up the middle. It's a weird mix, and we probably will never know. And that's the frustrating thing, obviously, as fans, because we see him tweet X, is it X a lot? I don't know what we call it these days. I'm going to say tweet. Elon, don't come for me. But he tweets a lot, and it always seems to be those cryptic things, and it does seem to be a bit, I don't want to say attention seeking, but it is. It's like he's trying to get the fans to call for him to play, Like, okay, yeah, maybe there has been weeks where it has been an injury. He has been on, like, through the illness, for example, but it just seemed like a scheme thing where we're favouring like Benito Jones, Quinton Bohanna, Broderick Martin to an extent over him, because I guess the staff trust them more, which obviously is confusing when Bugs was so good last year. He was such a good leader in the locker room, leading that defensive meeting that turned the defense around at the second half of the season. Something must have gone on, but unfortunately, we probably will never know until maybe years down the line. Kind of like, I know I mentioned him last week when I mentioned Bye Bye Barry, but Scott Mitchell obviously did his interview with DLP, for example, and explained a few things, explained why he was angry and offered some insight. That's probably what's going to happen is like 10, 15 years down the line, Bugs is going to go on, insert podcast name here. Hopefully, all the lines will still go in then and we can get that exclusive interview. But we'll probably never know until then, where he just says it on a podcast or something. It's going to be something that's just going to be rumbling on, unfortunately.
Yeah, I don't think it's anything to be massively concerned about, to be honest. I don't think he played massively well when he did play. He's a one-dimensional guy. We had Benito Jones rising up at the time. He is kind of leveled out now, but I would say that they are both replacement level players really at this stage. You've got high upside guys who can play, and you've got a wealth of talent that are the tweener guys who you kind of are shoehorning into playing inside. So, Kamish is playing more inside. You've got Romeo playing more inside when he is playing to kind of fit in the speedier guys on the outside. You've got to fit in all of them somehow. There's so many of them and they're all distinctly average. And if you don't kick out Bugs, then that means you aren't getting, Pascal on the field as much or Charles Harris on the field as much. So he's a victim of, I wouldn't say strength in depth, I would just say depth. Yeah. He's the odd man out, and he has to come down a little bit to work ethic. There's no other way about it. He just must feel like he's entitled to something that the rest of the team don't feel like he's entitled to. And it doesn't feel like it's to cause any disruption with the team. And he seemed like he was a big figure in terms of being a leader on the team last year, but it doesn't seem like the rest of the team are bothered.
Yeah, exactly. We haven't really seen anyone speak out in his favour from the team, which again is weird because I said he was the leader of that defensive meeting last year. Yeah. Something must have happened. I know obviously Brent's saying about the fact he got into a face-to-face argument with Glenn. The team must have seen something like that and obviously sided with Glenn, and they're kind of, I don't want to say giving him the cold shoulder, but they're not getting themselves involved because they don't want to drag themselves into any drama. Like, there's enough going on with the defense as it is, as we keep alluding to. They need to turn some things around. So maybe they're focusing on themselves rather than some drama with some vet who, as you say, might have poor work ethic, because that's supposedly what's happened in Pittsburgh. That's why he was let go from there, because he had a poor work ethic. He didn't turn up fit, and they got tired of that shit, because obviously Pittsburgh's like us. They don't stand for any mucking about, really, unless you're Juju Smith-Schuster, in which case you're allowed to do a few TikToks, then you get kicked away. But yeah, it's just one of them. If he could play, and then he would have a great game. Let's say he gets like 4 run stops and a sack and a half and maybe a forced fumble. Then, yeah, if he's that kind of player where you can consistently say, like a Chris Jones or a Donald or Fletcher Cox, then yeah, maybe we might be a bit like, you two, the team needs to sort this shit out, get onto some agreement with him and sort it out because we need him. But as you said, he's just a run stuffer who maybe he can get half a sack every now and then when the QB's forced into him because he's doing his thing against the centre and the QB steps up to face pressure and he gets half a sack. That's about it, unfortunately, from Bugs, which is disappointing, but we have been saying for a while we need to upgrade in the defensive tackle room. Not going to toot my own horn or anything, but Kalijah Kant is looking damn of a hell lot good from the interior.
He is. Right, let's move on to the rest of the slate, and it starts tonight with Seattle at Dallas, which is a big matchup in the NFC playoff picture. I mean, the Saints are running the gauntlet. The Seahawks are running the gauntlet. They have to pick up some wins somewhere where they're not fancied, and they're coming up against the Dallas team that has looked fantastic against some of the better teams and shit the bed against some worse teams. So this one could go either way, and I know that the Cowboys are more than a touchdown favourites in this game. How do you see it going?
I can see Dallas winning, unfortunately. I'm just looking at ESPN. Seahawks are 2-3 away, and obviously we know what one of those away victories won. So that could have easily been a loss if a coin flip goes the other way. Dallas are 5-0 at home. Jerry Wald, they are pretty damn unbeatable. Dak, as much as I like to rag on him, he's looking good this year. CeeDee Lamb, now they've actually put him in the slot and he's getting some good releases. He's looking good. As I said, Deron Bland has been a revelation corner for them. Most pick sixes ever in a season. And we're not even finished with it yet. They have some pieces. It's scary. And as much as I probably do want the Cowboys to drop the game because it makes it a bit easier for us in the playoff picture, just makes it a bit more murky, I don't see it happening, unfortunately. I see Dallas winning by touchdown and field goal.
Yeah, I'm with you. And actually, I'm not even sure that Dallas losing the game does help us in the playoff picture, because if they finish fifth, which looks likely, we avoid them if we don't finish fourth, which looks likely. If they come sixth and we come third, we've played them. So I don't want to play them. And so should we be rooting for Dallas? I mean, part of me wants them to eliminate Seattle. I feel Seattle is much more likely for us as a game. If we come second or third and they come seventh or sixth, that's going to be our game. We'll play them at home, but they've beaten us the last few times and they've got our number. And I don't believe in fate, and I do believe we can win that game. But I go into it with some trepidation versus playing almost any other team that we can face realistically. So let's see what happens with it. The rest of the slate on Sunday: Indy versus Tennessee, Chargers, Patriots, Atlanta, New York, call them the Jets, shall we? The Cardinals and the Steelers, the Dolphins and the Commanders, the Denver Broncos, the Houston Texans, which might be the game of the slate in the 1 o'clock slate. And then the 4 p.m. games: Carolina at Tampa Bay, Cleveland at LA Rams, and then 49ers at Eagles in a absolutely mouthwatering game. And then Sunday Night Football's Chiefs at Packers. That could be a wake-up call for the Chiefs. And then the Bengals at Jacksonville for Monday Night Football. What do you make of the rest of the weekend?
I'm actually kind of interested in the Steelers and the Cardinals game. I know that sounds a bit sickos because they haven't been the best, but the Steelers offense actually looked like it had life last week after they fired Matt Canada, and with Kyler coming back for the Cardinals.
Sorry.
It's fine. And then Kyler coming back for the Cardinals. That could be... The Steelers can still probably win, but I just want to see sort of how the Steelers offense can get, because if they can get that going, the AFC North isn't that good this year aside from Baltimore. Obviously, Bengals are going fucking nowhere now that Joe Burrow's hurt, and the Browns, they might have an elite defense, but what the hell is going on with the quarterback? I know DTR might not even play this week. So the Steelers could get themselves into a playoff picture here, which would be interesting. And obviously Cardinals, I just like to see Kyler running around like the little toddler he is. And I want them to sort of get into themselves. I want them to lose because it makes it harder for Chicago to maybe get themselves a good QB if they want to get one, because I know obviously they'll probably have the first bit from the Panthers, and if the Panthers do something, I want the Cardinals also have one of those decisions, because Kyler is good, but can you trust him now? So they might get themselves into Drake May, and obviously I'm a massive Drake May fan, as much as I shouldn't be considering my allegiances. But obviously hear that, and then Broncos Texans, that's going to be a hell of a game to watch at 6 p.m. That I'm going to be ready. Well, obviously we're watching it, but I'm going to have that up as well. My sort of second game I've got on ESPN, and then while I have the scoreboard, because CJ Stroud, man, he's pretty much wrapped up offensive rookie of the year already.
Yeah.
And then Broncos are the scary. Like, I've got to keep an eye on them because obviously I said it on our mid-season show. That game worries me. And it's becoming even more true now. Like, Sean Payton, somehow he turned it around and he's actually doing good despite me ragging on him in the off-season. Russ might be doing something.
I was listening to the Locked On NFL Scouting podcast with the draft dudes, and they were pouring scorn on this idea. And I thought it was really interesting to listen to about this because the way the offense has worked is that Russell Wilson has become the quarterback with the highest check down percentage in the NFL since they started winning. Basically, everything schemed hasn't worked, and he's just taken the easy completion. And then every now and again, he's just thrown a miracle ball. But apart from that, that's how the offense has worked. So there's nothing Sean Payton is really doing apart from saying, can you just hit your running back every time? And I just find that so weird. But then what do we do with like Gibbs and stuff, especially at the end of games? When we played the Bears and came back, Goff checked it down every single ball, basically. And we just had enough time.
I mean, I'm going to expose myself with a bit of my bias here. As a Javonte Williams owner in both the leagues and fantasy, I mean, this year.
I love Javonte.
I love Javonte. Same. Like, remember, he currently holds he has the second place in PFF's broken tackles per attempt in college behind a certain Trey Benson of Florida State.
Oh, get over yourself.
But yeah, like, I do love Javonte. We'll come on to it in a couple of weeks. Javonte, I'm really interested to watch him against our defense, as we're both probably celebrating because we've both won.
Yeah, and Liverpool through, so
we're through. But if we had scored another goal, it would have guaranteed us top spot, and that would have been a fucking hell of a lot nice because then we won't have to play till March. But anyway, back to the NFL.
Yeah,
back to Panthers Bucks is going to be a sickos game as well because it seems to me like.
No.
In this way, because Bucks currently are one game, obviously they're one game back from having a playoff spot, yet they hold the 7th pick in the draft. And the Panthers, despite what it seems, they still mathematically have a chance of winning the division and making the playoffs with a 7-10 record. They just need to win out. They need the Bucks to beat both the Saints and Falcons when they play them later and lose every other game, and the Saints and Falcons to lose out. And the Panthers win that division at 7-10. Like,
it's a beautiful
that mathematical chance to happen. I just want to see that happen. Plus, but also don't want it to happen because I'm starting Baker in the broader Lions League this week, and that scares me. Yeah. That really scares me. And that's someone who's had to start like Justin Fields for a couple of games. I think I started bloody DTR for one game as well. So I'm just I'm in a hole right now. I'm really in a hole QB wise.
So my favourite game of the 1 o'clock slate is probably no one else's favourite game, apart from the Lions game, obviously. Outside of the Lions game, it's Miami, Washington. Because I think that's going to be a game of, like, no defense whatsoever. Like, I can see 50 burgers by, like, both teams. I can't wait. It's going to be, like, Miami going to tear through Washington like a knife through butter. But you know Sam Howell's going to come and play. Like, I cannot wait to watch it. It's going to be so fun.
He always plays well in the big games, doesn't he? And plus,
and then let's spare some time for 49ers Eagles as well. Like, the top two teams in the NFC. I know that the Lions are in it, but we are number 3 right now. And the Niners have come back to play after their mid-season blip. They're firing on all cylinders. I think the Niners are the best team in the conference right now. I still am not convinced by the Eagles, but it's in Philly. What do you think is going to happen?
Is it bad? Like, see, what I think is going to happen and what I hope will happen are completely different. What I think is going to happen is they have a decent game against each other. It's close. And I don't know, 49ers win by like a last second touchdown where Kyle Shanahan schemes up something. Obviously, what I hope happens is every single good player on both teams gets hurt for the rest of the season, and we can easily get the first seed. I know that's cruel of me, but come on, anything for us to get an easier draw. I'm not actively wishing injuries on anyone. I would never do that. But if anyone's going to get injured, let it be in our favor. I feel evil saying that, and obviously, touch wood, no one actually does get injured because obviously injuries can completely change people's lives and careers. don't want anything like that. But, like ones that knock out like Trent Williams for a couple of games to the 49ers side back, and maybe, I don't know, Jalen Hurts gets a high ankle sprain, so he has to sit out a couple of games, and it just means that we can carry on to the first seed. I'll be happy.
I don't know if you've seen the betting for this game. Would it surprise you that the number 1 seed, the only one-loss team still remaining, is a 3-point dog at home?
No, it wouldn't. It was say 49ers just. The Eagles have looked shaky. Like, I mean, that loss they have is against the Jets. I think it was the Jets at home. It was away, because obviously their record at home. But the Eagles have looked shaky. They've won a lot of close games. 49ers obviously had their blip, but they're back on it now, and they can blow teams away. So it doesn't surprise me too much. It's not like, I don't know, R1 where like we've had 2 rough games and we're still a active favourite against the Saints away at the Superdome, where they have a massive home field advantage. At least the Saints do. I know a certain other Louisiana team that's played at the Caesars Superdome in the past 2 years didn't have a home field advantage when they played there. Cough, cough, not mentioned in the team. But I can see them duking out. It's going to be a good game. Like, when we finished, obviously, I'm probably going to turn that on and just enjoy it while I eat my dinner. Like, it's going to be a good one to watch.
Yeah, I can't wait for it. Right, that's going to do it for us. Everyone who has stuck with us all this time, thank you so much for listening. You've been fantastic. To echo the sentiments from earlier as well. Like, the podcast stats are great, but they end at a certain point and we continue on with you guys and just chatting with us and giving us comments and stuff to work with and being friends. Like, friends. Appreciate it. Thank you. Football friends. Right. Have a great rest of your week. Hopefully the College Football Podcast will be shortly and we can preview Championship Week. We'll see you for the game on Sunday. Have a good weekend. See you soon, guys. Goodbye.